We are almost at the end of our unit on quadratics. Yesterday we talked about imaginary numbers, well, for the past 2 days. Today we're going to talk about complex numbers. Your quiz on this will be next Thursday. All right, complex numbers. Consider the number 5 plus 2i, because 5 is a real number and 2i is a pure imaginary number. They are not like terms. I is just like any other variable. Unless the number has an I with it, you can't combine them. You can only combine like terms. This type of expression is called a complex number. Standard form is a plus bi. So you've got the real part and the imaginary part. And that is simplest form. So you wouldn't be able to combine those two because the a doesn't have an I. For adding and subtracting, you're just combining like terms. And remember to watch out for subtraction. If you're subtracting two expressions, what do you do to the second binomial in this case? Or the second expression, what would you do? You're going to change that to addition and change all the signs in the second binomial. So for subtraction, remember to change all the signs in the second binomial. Number 1, negative 11 plus 3i plus 9 plus 2i. You can only combine like terms. So we're adding negative 11 plus 9 and 3i plus 2i. You cannot combine those two because that is standard form of a complex number. Just leave it like it is. The negative 2 does not have an I, so you can't combine those two terms. Number 2, 4 plus I plus 7 minus 5i. Four plus 7, I minus 5i. Number 3, we have to change all the terms in the second binomial. So I'm going to change subtraction to addition, change 2 to negative 2, and 6i to negative 6i. If they were already negative, you would have to change them to positive. And then combine like terms. 7 minus 2, negative 2i plus negative 6i. And number 4. So if there's a minus in front of that set of parentheses, you have to distribute that negative. So plus negative 14 plus I. And then you're just combining like terms. 6i plus 1i minus 3i. 6 plus 1 minus 3 is 4i. Negative 14 plus 5 is negative 9, but we want it in standard form, so I need to change it around. The I should come last. Negative 9 plus 4i. When you are multiplying, remember, we need to remember that I squared equals negative 1. So anytime you have an I squared, you're going to replace it with negative 1. And you're just going to distribute what's on the outside to what's on the inside. Or, For two binomials, we use FOIL. Pay attention to what sign is in between the parentheses. When you don't see a sign in between, what's it understood to be? Multiplication. That is different from subtraction or addition. So pay attention to your signs. Number 5, we have to distribute the 2i. So it's 2i times 8 is 16i. 2 times 3 is 6. I times I is I squared. What do we do with I squared? Replace it with -1. So that gives me 16i plus 6. But I need to write it in standard form. The real number comes first, then the imaginary part. -I times -2, -I times 10i. Just distribute what's on the outside. -I times -2 is 2i. -I times 10i is -10i squared. Put -1 in place of I squared, so that's going to give me a positive 10 plus 2i. Number 7. So we got to use FOIL. 7 times 4 is 28. 7 times -I is -7i. I times 4 is 4i. I times -I is -I squared. Combine like terms. Put -1 in place of I squared. So we have 28 plus 1 is 29 minus 3i. Number 8, 2 times -5, 2 times -3i, -4i times -5 is plus 20i, -4i times -3i is plus 12i squared. Combine like terms. Put -1 in place of I squared. So that's going to be -12 minus 10 is -22 plus 14i. Number 9, we've got 6 minus 2i squared. So we multiply it times itself. 6 times 6, 6 times -2i, -2i times 6, -2i times -2i is positive 4i squared. Combine like terms. And put -1 in place of I squared. So that's going to be a -4 plus 36 is 32 minus 24i. Number 10, we have to FOIL the first part and then subtract the last part. Or add the opposite. Alright, so we're going to FOIL the first part. 1 times 9. 1 times 3i. 7i times 9. 7i times 3i. I changed the signs in the second polynomial and changed it to addition. So now we're just combining like terms. The constants are 9 and -4. 9 and -4 is 5. Put a -1 in place of I squared. So we're going to that's going to be -21. We still have to subtract that. And then everything with an I. 3 plus 63 minus 2. (64i). 5 minus 21, or -21 plus 5, is 16 plus 64i. Any questions? All right, turn to the back. Complex conjugates. Two complex numbers in the form a plus bi and a minus bi are called complex conjugates. The product of two conjugates is always a real number. That means you won't have an I in your answer because those i's are going to cancel out. So number 11, 8 times 8. 8 times -i. I times 8. I times -i. Negative 8i plus 8i is 0. So we have 64 minus I squared is -1. 64 plus 1 is 65. So you're not going to have an I in your answer if you're multiplying complex conjugates. It's the same. They both have the same first term and last term. The only difference is the signs. That's going to make these middle terms cancel out every time. And your I squared turns to -1. So number 12, we've got 5 times 5. So really all you have to do is multiply the first two terms and the last two terms. 4 times 4 is 16. I squared. So that's going to be 25 minus 16 times -1, which is 25 plus 16. So that gives me 30, what? 41. So if you look at it and you realize there's complex conjugates, you know those middle terms are going to cancel. All you have to do is multiply the first two, multiply the last two, and put a minus in the middle. Now for dividing complex numbers, watch out. I cannot be in the denominator of a complex number for your final answer. If the denominator is a monomial, multiply top and bottom by I. If the denominator is a binomial, multiply top and bottom by the conjugate. All right, let's try it out. Number 13, 10 divided by 2i. We can simplify 10 divided by 2. What is that? 5, but we still have an I in the denominator. So if the denominator is a monomial, multiply top and bottom by I. That'll make that I cancel out on the bottom because what's I times I? I squared, which is, what do we put in place of I squared? -1. Number 14, 4 divided by -9i. There's no way for me to simplify that, so I just need to get rid of that I in the denominator. So I'm going to multiply top and bottom by I. Replace I squared with -1. So my final answer is 4/9. (15) 28 minus 8i divided by 4i. I can divide everything by 4, but I can't divide I into 28. So let's multiply by I first. (28i minus 8i squared over 4i squared). Replace I squared with -1. So that gives me 28 plus 8 over -4. What's 28 plus 8?
30.
Divided by -4. It's actually kind of cool how those i's cancel out with I squared. To me, at least. Number 16, multiply by I. Multiply top and bottom by I. If your denominator is just one term, what separates terms? How do I know if it's one or two terms? This is 1, this is 2. What separates terms?
Like a plus or
Yes, a plus or minus, addition or subtraction. So when I say one term, I don't just mean one individual thing. Two things can be multiplied, but two things cannot be added or subtracted. That makes it two separate terms. So if it's just one term, you multiply by I on the top and the bottom. Now, when you multiply I times a binomial, you have to multiply both terms by I. Replace I squared with -1. So that gives me -2 times -1 is +2. 6 times -1 is -6. I can divide everything by 2, but that's as far as I can go with simplifying because I can't combine like terms here. So divide everything by 2. -8i divided by 2 is -4i. 2 divided by 2 is 1. -6 divided by 2 is -3. It's okay to have an I in your answer. It's okay to have an I in the numerator. You just can't have I in the denominator. Now, if it's a binomial, you're going to multiply by the conjugate. What is the conjugate of 5 minus I? It's the same thing, it's just you change the sign. So the conjugate of 5 minus I is 5 plus I. So you're going to multiply top and bottom by the conjugate. If I multiply -2 times 5 plus I, you have to distribute. -2 times 5, -2 times I. 5 times 5, 5 times positive I, 5 times negative I. Those middle two are going to cancel out, and you're going to have minus I squared. Put -1 in place of I squared, so you have -10 minus 2I over -1. The opposite of -1 is 1. 25 plus 1 is 26. You can simplify by dividing everything by 2. If it's not divisible into all three terms, you can't simplify it. So all of these are divisible by 2. I can simplify. That gives me -5 minus I over 13. Let's do one more. Number 18. Which one do you want to do? 18, 19, or 20? 20. All right, we have to multiply by the conjugate. What's the conjugate of 2 minus 4i? 2 plus 4i. So we're foiling both top and bottom. 1 times 2, 1 times 4i. 8i times 2, 8i times 4i is 32i squared. Ran out of room. These are complex conjugates, so all I have to do is multiply the first two and the last two. On the top, to simplify, we need to combine like terms in the middle and replace that I squared with a negative 1. On the bottom, I need to replace that I squared with a negative 1. This becomes negative 32 plus 2 is 30 plus 20i. And then on the bottom, we have 16 plus 4 is 20. So I need to simplify one last time. What are all three of those terms divisible by? 10. All right, your assignment today is homework 5. You can do the evens or the odds all the way through 21 or 22.